Welcome to my first attempt to try to share some color theory, starting with gold and yellow. If there's a Renaissance painter you ought to know, it's Giotto. This is considered one of his masterworks. He uses gold here to show divine power. Artists of varying cultures and religions have used this device to make holy figures stand out for ages. Here Giotto has painted a biblical scene called the Adoration of the Magi. Hey Dragon, do you remember what gifts the Magi brought to baby Jesus? Golden mice and tumors. No. Gold, frankincense, and myrrh, which are all yellow in color, I might add. Where did you get those from anyway, Dragon? Moving on. Next we see yellow used in a theatrical way by Caravaggio and the Calling of St. Matthew. You can just barely make out Jesus' halo here as the sun comes in behind him. This is Matthew, the tax collector here, pointing at himself. And it looks like some money counting or exchange is happening here on the table. What are you trying to show us, Phoenix? Yeah, I don't think I could ever have pictured Jesus' disciples wearing tights like that, but you know, whatever. Oh, that's not it? What then? Oh, the pointing. Yes, Jesus' hand here mirrors another famous work I'm sure you know. Michelangelo's creation of Adam. That's so interesting. Did you also ever notice that this cloth kind of looks like a brain? Now let's look at this lovely little painting by Vermeer called Balance. Here light brings us in, first to the gold chains and pearls. Then we're led down to gold coins. And we're led up by the gold there shown on her belly to her face. You'll notice the painting behind is a depiction of the Last Judgment, in which the theme is souls being judged or weighed, similarly to the scales that are in her hand. One interpretation is that she's weighing the balance between the spiritual and earthly treasures in her life. Oh, Dragon's back. More golden mice and tumors? You're gonna have everybody confused. Dragon loves a good story. If they want to know more about the Ark of the Covenant, there's a whole Indiana Jones movie about it. Just kidding. You can check that out in the Bible. This is Thomas Cole's Voyage of Manhood. To me, this painting has a similar flow to Vermeer's, starting with this heavenly being up here in the corner, down to the man in his golden angelic boat, the river taking us down, and then we're brought back up into the sky here in the center of the painting. When I look at some of the details closely, I notice that there are some rocks that look oddly like faces in different places. This tree, this hole looks like a gaping scream to me. And even up here in the sky, there's these bluish green figures that look demonic. Let's look at the variations of yellow in these two Van Gogh paintings. In the first painting, called the Sower, we see this rising radiant sun and some of its yellow cast on the ground between blue brushstrokes. In the Night Cafe, yellow radiates from the lamps, but it has a green tint to it. This yellow-green reflects onto some of the figures, which to me gives them a sickly look. Van Gogh would have known our next artist. Edgar Degas. This was painted more than a decade before the last two, but it's possible some of the pigments Van Gogh used weren't even created yet. Yet we still see a similar yellow-green here on the wall, this lady's drink, and just overall lighting that's cast onto the tables. Here's a piece by Poussin, where we see the contrast between the warm yellow in the priest's robe and the cool yellow of a man receiving an anointing oil. I think the artist also really wants us to see this dominating circle on the wall. Circles are often the symbol of monotheism, the heavens, the sun, or shielding. Interestingly, the figures are also grouped into two circles, with a man and a woman linking them in the center. Also take note of the two doors in the background. This one's slightly more ajar than this one. I'm sure you've seen this one by Edvard Munch. Again, we see this greenish yellow depicted at the time of mental sickness. Some interpret this as a panic attack, others agoraphobia, which is the fear of situations that might cause helplessness or embarrassment. Shimmering substance. Dragon, who do you think painted this one? No, it wasn't Worms. It was Jackson Pollock. He made this in his barn that he converted to a studio. I love that it has these circular rhythmic forms and one central yellow circle as well. Pollock himself said, "It has that Whitman feeling of health, of a full noon trill, the song of me rising from bed and meeting the sun." And he went on to say, "Ever try just listening up there at Green River? You can feel what I'm trying to say, maybe." Phoenix is telling me that this is not her favorite. She prefers more orderly looking art. So here's Glenda the Good Witch by Layla Luna. We see similar colors take on the form of what looks like pie charts. Tones of water, earth, and gold rest in balance. Our last image is of Manjushri, the Bodhisattva of Transcendent Wisdom. A Bodhisattva is an ideal type. I've heard the comparison between the saints of Catholicism, but they're not associated with the historical figure like a saint would be. Manjushri was worshipped in China as the embodiment of knowledge and the guardian of sacred doctrines. He's often shown seated on the back of a lion, and he carries a book of truth and a sword that cuts through the darkness of ignorance. If we zoom in, we can see fingers holding the stem of a flower that blooms into the book of truth. And the other hand connects with the sword. There's much more beautiful detail of heavenly beings, plant life, and little deer in this work. So go check it out. It's at metmuseum.org. Thank you for joining me on my color theory journey.